Okay? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. This way, guys. Keep moving that way. Thank you very much.
No, we didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. This way, guys.
No, we didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. This way, guys.
No, we didn't.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. This way, guys.
The Devil is in the Details. NASA and the Moon. Body Language Part 5 by Michael Israel. Real TV.
You know, it could have been anyone who walked on the moon. It could have been Neil, first on the moon. It could have been Buzz. It could have been Walt. It could have been any one of our colleagues. But I don't think any one of us who would have had that opportunity could have handled it with as great and as honorable dignity as Neil Armstrong has handled the responsibility of being the first human being to step foot on the surface of the moon.
As we dive right in, interpreting the cryptic body language that we're seeing in front of us, let's take a look at Neil Armstrong here to the left. His whole demeanor has a nonchalant perspective with his hand on his hip and his arm flowing straight down as if he's trying to go with the flow yet be assertive. Okay, you know, it's like a basketball player. When they get finished with the play, typically you'll see two hands on the hip. It's like to show assertiveness, to show power. But you can see that his power is diminished. He is looking down to the ground, shaking his head like a dog's tail underneath him. As they clap, you know, he's just ashamed, you know. Now, the ones that are clapping are looking at him like, hey, Neil, did you really step on that moon? As you can see, the commander with his arms crossed trying to play an assertive, a defiant role here. You know what I mean? And the look on Neil Armstrong's face like, yeah, I went to the moon. Just the look on his face. This is not that excited face of someone who went to space. Did we really go to the moon? Let's check out this next clip.
Neil, Buzz, and Mike, I want you to know that I think I'm the luckiest man in the world. And I say this not only because I have the honor to be President of the United States, but particularly because I have the privilege of speaking for so many and welcoming you back to Earth. I can tell you about all the messages we've received in Washington.
A few things to point out is the strong denial in Neil Armstrong's countenance. Michael Collins and also Buzz Aldrin have a face of stone as the president speaks. Notice the same thing that he does here is what he also does in the future. He just has that denial about going to the moon. Why aren't you putting your head down? Why? Reading from space.com, back from the moon, Apollo astronauts had to go through customs. So I want you to pay attention very carefully. We're about to really discover some truth, and we're going to see how much the devil is really in the details. Okay, let's read. Starting midway from the article, the catch: the astronauts were trapped inside a NASA trailer as part of a quarantine effort just in case they brought back any germs or diseases from the moon. They even wore special biological containment suits when they walked out on the deck of the USS Hornet after being retrieved. NASA transported them to Houston quarantine trailer and all. They emerged from isolation 3 weeks later. Nowadays, astronauts returning from space exit their spacecraft almost immediately, though some long-duration astronauts receive medical checks after spending months in weightlessness. So, as we just read, it says nowadays they are getting medical checks. So that means back then they weren't. So if that's the case, why is there someone in the background here? Is it me, or do you see someone in the background with the watch? Look very closely. Do you see it? Now check it. They're going to actually duck down and hide. Now if this is a quarantined ship, why is there people in the ship, and why are they hiding in the back of the camera? The devil is in the details. Do you see it?
Because I have the privilege of speaking for so many and welcoming you back to Earth. I can tell you about speaking for so many and welcoming you back to Earth. I can tell you about all the messages we've received in Washington. Over 100 foreign governments, emperors and presidents and prime ministers and kings have sent the most warm messages that we've ever received. They represent over 2 billion people on this earth, all of them who have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done. And then I also bring you messages from members of the cabinet and members of the Senate and members of the House.
Hold up. Did you see that? Why is Buzz tapping his hand on the counter like, Neil, you need to talk. You need to talk now. Like they planned this. If you just came from the moon, Neil doesn't need to talk. He's already paying attention. So why are you tapping your hand? Why are you looking at him like, hey, you lead the conversation. You stepped on the moon first. We want you to talk. That's the game plan. I find it pretty odd. What you say?
Have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done. Had the opportunity through television to see what you have done.
Have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done.
And then I also bring you messages from members of the cabinet and members of the Senate and members of the House. Have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done. Have had the opportunity through television to see what you have done.
Knew that there wasn't going to be any trouble for me to move around.
About a 3-footer. Beautiful view.
So we proceeded on.
Here, men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD.
Walking was relatively easy. I demonstrated several means near the end of our stay on the surface. Walking was relatively easy. I demonstrated several means near the end of our stay on the surface in front of the TV camera. In front of the TV camera. In front of the TV camera. In front of the TV camera.
In front of the TV camera.
And for the sake of time, we're not going to show every single movie that has to deal with space at this time. Throughout many generations, there's been so many movies about space that we can't even comprehend. So how do we know that NASA is telling the truth? How do we know that it wasn't filmed on TV, right? So even though, figuratively speaking, one of the first things that was said was that the Eagle has landed, that USA has landed on the moon. Eagles can only fly so high. They can fly very high, but they can't fly to quote-unquote space. Eagles, as we know it, fly anywhere between 10,000 and 15,000 feet. Very high altitudes, higher than the buildings in Dubai. So the word astronaut, when we break that down, We have to understand the prefix astro. It relates to stars, celestial objects, outer space. We know that in common sense, an astronaut is someone who is considered to go into space, right? So as we examine the word not is short for nautical, meaning relating to the water and ships. Water and ships. Okay? Water and ships. I want you to think about that. And keep that nugget into your mind. Because we do have a firmament. The firmament is water. The word nautical is related to the word sailors or navigation, maritime, like maritime law. It's in regards to the sea, to the ocean, naval, nautical. So when I think of the word astronaut, I think of astronaut, like N-O-T, not. Like, did they go to space? Yeah, we went to space. Not, it's like a joke. Astronaut, they never went anywhere. Apollo 11 spent so much money. They spent a lot of money on this. And with their investment, you can believe that they're going to keep this under wraps. They're going to keep what they said to be true, that they went to the moon, knowing good and well that when it comes to the actual shape of the world, there's ice that is so high. There's a firmament that can't be broken. And we're going to examine exactly what it is. They tried this Operation Fishbowl, and they noticed that they couldn't get out of where we are. And you wonder why there's a rainbow and sundogs. That's because there's a molten glass surrounding our atmosphere. This may be a little tough, but this is what it is. It's just that plain. It's just that simple. Reading from the book of Psalm chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Why do the heathen rage? Heathen means irreligious person. And the people imagine a vain thing. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. So who are the kings? That's the presidents. That's your mayors, your governors. Okay? They take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying. So not only are they taking counsel against the Lord, but they taking counsel against those who are telling this truth. They're saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Derision, he's going to have them looking like fools, looking like they're mocked. He's going to have them looking like liars, because they are. They are not telling the truth about what's really going on. You have to remember, they put billions, multi-billions of dollars in this secret. This is a great secret. And we're going to unravel it today. We're going to see how the world really is coming together to take counsel in so many ways. Maybe you need a visual. As we analyze these photos, I want you to see that in 1946, they had an operation called Operation High Jump, where they were trying to discover the size of the glaciers in Antarctica. They sent Admiral Byrd, a 5-star general at this time, to discover the height and the length of the walls. And in his statements, if you can get a chance to watch it, he talks about how the ice caps, trying to figure them out and trying to grasp their measures like an ant trying to find the circumference of an elephant. There's another soldier who did some traveling. His name was Captain Cook. He traveled the ice over 60,000 miles. 60,000 miles. It took him 3 years to go over the ice caps. 3 years to go over all the ice, just like in one direction. 60,000 miles. 3 years. And the journey was so long after that, he found something. He found something, which we're going to get into a little bit later, but he found some land outside of the ice. What are they not telling us? Okay, now we'll see here in 1955, they wanted to discover the firmament. Okay, so they also had deep freeze and they also had another operation. Lo and behold, NASA came into play. After NASA, you have all the countries of the world, pretty much. A lot of countries, I don't want to say all, but a lot of countries essentially got together and they formed the Treaty of Antarctica. And this was to prevent anybody from coming or going to Antarctica to discover its proximity. Now, how is it that we can go to war with one another as countries, but yet there's one treaty that bands us all together, and that's the Treaty of Antarctica? After that was Operation Fishbowl. You can clearly look at the decal that there's something up, like they were trying to penetrate the firmament. They're trying to figure out, what is this glass of? What is this? What is this thing that we can't break? What is this thing that it seems like we can't get out? Now, with Apollo 11's mission completed in 1969, we understand that it's very controversial. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is the fact that we live in a place that's beautiful, that's great, but it's of evil, yes. But in this world that we live in, it's a blessing. Nobody wants to die, yet they're trying their hardest to so-called leave. Who are they that are trying to leave and to discover? And if they are trying to leave and discover, wouldn't Satan be a part of that? If he got kicked out of heaven, wouldn't Satan want to try to go back to heaven? Try to find his way out? But yet they try to make it seem like we're in this prison. They try to make it seem like we don't have enough food. They make it seem like we need to be depopulated. There's a lot that is really being portrayed to the public that is a lot for some to not awake from the deep sleep. It's time to awake. It's time to know the truth. Philippians chapter 1, verse 27. Only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ, that whether I come and see you, or else be absent, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. There's something that we all must do, and that thing is stand fast in one spirit, that we should have our conversation be of this good news, to be of this truth, to be real. It feels good to know the truth. It feels good to you know, be in the truth. You know, there's no punchline to it. But we're going to break it down and we're going to understand these scriptures. Who's lying? Your science teacher or the Most High? Who's lying? Somebody's lying. And we're going to figure out exactly who it is, because it's not the Most High. But you should ask yourself, who's lying? Your science teacher or the Most High? Job chapter 37 verse 18. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass? 1 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 30. Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. NASA told us that we go around the sun. So is the sun going around the earth, or is the earth going around the sun? Fear before him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 8. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of earth, the pillars of earth are the Lord's. The what? The pillars. The who? The pillars. Huh? The pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. But they told us that the world is different. They never told us that the world had pillars. Why didn't they tell us that? Because if they told us that, then they would have to admit who our Creator is. They would have to admit that the Heavenly Father is real and that we have to do right. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 12. And he shall set up an sign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Hallelujah. He's going to gather together Israel. He's going to gather together Judah. That's a whole different show. But in regards to this mystery, the four corners of the earth, four pillars, Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out to the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So something is spread out like a curtain, like a scroll. We're like grasshoppers. There's a circle that he sitteth upon. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. So how big is our Lord if we're just as little grasshoppers? Matthew chapter 4 verse 8. Again, the devil taketh him up to an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. There's only one true way that you can see all the kingdoms of the world, and it's not by the world that we know. To see all the kingdoms of the world will have to look more like this. The Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. The world is also established, that it cannot be moved. So who is lying? The Most High or your science teacher? You've been taught that Pluto and Neptune and Jupiter and Saturn and Earth and Mars and Venus all go around the sun. These other planets are not true. The earth cannot be moved. The earth cannot be moved. Psalm chapter 104 verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. If you knew what was being hidden from you, your life would change today. There's someone who loves you, who wants to show you how much they love you. And they want you to know something, so maybe you can get to know them. All glory goes to the Most High. There's a depiction of the world that you've never been taught, and to learn it at first hand can be a little much. But if you only knew that there was more that was being hidden from you. There's a map that was posted in the Hawaiian Gazette back in 1907 that was in a cave for over 1,000 years, and it was never supposed to go to public. It gives a depiction of what the real world map looks like from an aerial view. Past the Arctics, there's more land that we've never been taught, but yet we've been taught that there's not enough food, that there's not enough water, that there's just not enough resources, because we're quote-unquote trapped inside of this world. This isn't a trap. You have to remember that this was the second heaven until we ate the fruit. Now we have the lives that we live now, but the goal is to live better, that we can get to heaven, and that heaven will be on earth, so we can live with our Holy Father. There's something in our spirit that tells us every time we get on the flight that it's just some type of confusion when it comes to point A to point B, where you have to go through D and F just to get through a location. The curvature of the earth is not what we think it is. Looking at this Orbit's bubblegum, when you turn it the other way, you clearly see the water. You clearly see the sky. You clearly see the firmament and that molten glass, that glow from the molten glass, that sundog, that rainbow, right? That same depiction is in our eyeball. You know, it's in our eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. Everything is around us.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and And that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. But I think I know. Because we didn't. Because we didn't. Because we didn't.
Root TV.